All right, welcome to On My Block Packers podcast. This is this now the Packers podcast? Or is this going to be an NFC or NFL playoff podcast? I'm not sure. I'm your host, Mike Wall. Amon Green, Packers all-time leading rusher, is with us this morning. Good morning, Amon. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Mike. How you doing? Good morning.
I'm doing good, man. Let's get this Bet Online AG, who's responsible for all our picks and our money lines. Bet Online. Basketball's back, and this is so good. I'll give it two intros. Basketball's back, and Bet Online remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at Bet Online. And as your continued source for all sports wagering information, Bet Online features live betting, free contests, and giveaways all season long. It's always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events, whether that's NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, tennis, boxing, esports, or even golf. So head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use your promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your rewards. Bet Online, where the game starts. Let's start with this. Packers in the news because obviously they lost last week to the Lions, kicked themselves out of the playoffs for the first time in a couple of years. I think the big thing is, what went wrong? We have a talented roster. We talked about this ad nauseum. I tweeted out a couple of days ago, there's probably somewhere around 20, 22 non-negotiable players on this team, guys that are like you need to have on a roster. They're good players. Given the salary cap situations that we're all this going to change, but we have a talented roster. We thought we were coming into this season with a top 5 defense, and offensively, you've got weapons all over the board. We ended up 14 on offense and 17 in defense. Both were averaging 21.8. We scored 21.8. We give up 21.8. Now, I think for most of the season, we're actually closer to 17 on the offensive side of the ball. We're pretty bad. But when AG, it's like really anybody, you don't have to be a statistician to draw a line between if you're giving up about the same amount of points that you're scoring, you're going to be about a 500 football team. We're just underneath that. Yeah,
so for sure. It's something, it's just you saw the development of the young receivers, how that was an effect on the squad, to then Aaron and questioning them and questioning other players, that back and forth defensive backfield miscommunications all season long, and it wasn't no quick adjustment until their life was on the line. When they knew the season of life was coming to an end, that's when probably 2-3 games ago, the defensive backs started really playing well. Playing together, not playing well, but playing together as a unit and stopping wide receiver cores that they were facing in that time.
Yeah, I mean, you just looking back at the Minnesota Vikings game. We were talking about this yesterday with somebody else. It's like that was the first time. I'm sure there's a lot of things that happen that we can't evaluate directly because we're not part of the meetings. But that was the first time that we saw on-field performance that showed that they were now going to take some accountability for the pre-snap communication and stop putting everything post-snap. They had failed all year at post-snap communication. They started doing pre-snap communication, particularly with Justin Jefferson in the Vikings game. They found success too little, too late. Then, the Detroit game, Detroit's a much more balanced team. The Vikings were on their third string center, second string right tackle, rookie right guard. And they were a team that likes to throw the ball 65% of the time, which is about 10 percentage points higher, I guess, than average. So you get to a Detroit Lions team that has a great offensive line, 2 good running backs, multiple wide receivers, a good quarterback. You're not going to be able to do the same stuff. Now, they did great defensively. I guess my point being that when you get to the 17th week of the season, before you start making adjustments that are going to be really meaningful on either side of the ball, it's probably too late. You'd expect to see those in-game adjustments during the season. One thing that did stand out statistically, you talk about this defense, teams were running against this almost 50% of the time. So 48% of the snaps against our defense, which is good for 30th in the league, teams are running the football, which means obviously that they're doing a really good job of giving up yardage, right? The teams against us are averaging 5 yards per carry. And again, I go back to you just start looking at why. And last year, you could say, well, we're a bend but don't break defense. We play shell coverage. We're going to let you go up and down the field. We're going to try to stop you from scoring touchdowns from the red zone in or the high red zone in. When I look at it, let me ask you, do you think it's a philosophy problem or an execution problem?
A mixture of both. Because philosophy, you want to stop people's run. That's like almost the first thing defensive coordinators go after when they have the big group meeting and saying, hey, we got to slow the run down. regardless of the running back, you always look to the backfield first because the backfield is an extension to the offensive line and how good they are. You got a good offensive line, you're going to have a pretty decent run game. If you just have run-of-the-mill running backs that just know how to hit the crease, they have no breakaway speed. It's not a size thing like a Derrick Henry or AJ Dillon. But if you just have a good line and average running backs, i.e. Patriots game, you saw that Stevenson and them had a good day running the ball. Zappe almost came in on the road as a third-string quarterback and beat the team early from that early season game. So those little question marks right there are just more of a mixture of both philosophy, making sure you're hitting the broad tactics, the broad details in the meetings, and then obviously execution. When the player then gets the whole game plan in his head, where's he supposed to suit up at? Where's he supposed to hit the gaps in terms of the fit into the A gap, the B gap, knowing his gap responsibility from a linebacker to a defensive back standpoint.
There's a scheme issue. The other way to say that is there's a scheme issue in that you're probably not putting 7-8 people in the box like you should for some of these plays because you don't want to give up the big play downfield. You want to play everybody in front of you. You want to play with your chest facing the quarterback at all times if you're in the secondary. And then the second part of that is you still had some tackling issues. You still had problems getting off blocks for a good majority of the season. You think about Quay Walker as a young player who's going to be a good player in the league, but had a really hard time getting off blocks, especially early on. He's still in this last game. You saw how many tackles did he make 8 yards down the field, right?
Yeah.
Because he's not hitting those gaps. We talked about the difference between him and Isaiah McDuffie or Chris Barnes. It's just that your ability to hit the ball carrier in the hole. And it's just those little things add up over time. You're just talking about 3-4 yards every single snap where they're getting free access for additional yardage. Yeah. Let me ask you this, though, kind of a bigger picture thing. When I look at this team, and I've had a couple conversations with guys across the league now, in coaching positions, players, and since the regular season ended a couple of days ago. And one of the things that there's kind of two things that always come up in every conversation we have, and it just depends on if you're talking with a player, talking with a coach, talking with a personnel guy, or an ex-player.
Yeah.
There's a change in football that we've talked about ad nauseum, and it's that a lot of players just aren't as desperate than they used to be to kind of be their best because the vehicle of football is more important than football itself now.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about that? Because I know how passionate you are about being your best.
Yeah, I see. I agree with it. I see that kind of across traditional sports now. I see it in basketball a little bit. I see it a lot more in basketball, unfortunately. I've seen it in baseball for years, but in football, I think in the last 15 years, that's where the attitude has changed to where what we talked about in the locker room, or we will hear, oh, guys are just here for a paycheck. We will spit that out every now and then as a joke, or we're in an argument with somebody.
Because they were minorities.
Exactly.
That was the minority, yeah.
Right, that was a minority, and you heard it sometimes. So now it's the realization of where I see players, even unfortunately at the college level, when the whole NIL stuff became a thing a few years ago, the point guard from Miami saying, hey, look, I'm going to go to another school if I don't get this NIL deal up to this amount of money. And I'm saying to myself, like, if you really love basketball, I don't care what level you're at. It doesn't matter what you're making, as long as you're playing and you're winning and you're with the group of guys and ladies and whoever's running the organization that all on the same page to trying to win. So I believe that that's a true statement in my book. I see it, and I say it's up to the coaches to change that culture. It's up to the coaches to demand it from the players. Like, hey, I know what y'all could walk out of this building and don't have to pick up another, don't have to punch a clock. You could do that. I had coaches lead the meeting off with that, when I was in Seattle, a few times in the running back room in Green Bay. He's like, hey, y'all could walk out this door. But, for you that's been playing since you were 5, that has the dedication, that has the want to and the passion inside your heart to go play and to be the best at what you do, this is what we got to do to get better. Because last week we stunk it up on the field, and now we got to do this. Or we stunk it up last season. We got to get better this season. Coming out into a mini camp meeting, what have you. You got to have that. And I say part of that is the player, number one, and then 2, the coach to help reinforce that mindset and that mantra.
I'm with you. It kind of leads to my second point. There's 2 businesses in the National Football League. We don't talk about it enough. Everybody thinks that let's say you belong to the Green Bay Packers, whether you're a player personnel guy, whether you're on the coaching staff, whether you're an individual player on the team. Everyone thinks that your incentives are aligned and everyone thinks that you're all in it for each other. And I don't think that like obviously brand loyalty to the individual is now stronger than brand loyalty or loyalty to the team. I mean, we show that athletes are entrepreneurs more so now than ever before. They
100%.
they understand what's paying their paychecks, right? Like,
they understand.
Every player
100%.
on this, every player would take a minuscule amount of money now more. There's probably, let me rephrase that. For all but about 6 or 8 teams in the National Football League, most players would take a minuscule amount of money more to go somewhere else because they value that money more than they value the relationships and whatever is being presented to them on that team. And the reason, my philosophy on the reason because of that is because we are now hiring coaches, and coaching, the business of coaching is get your foot in the door, whether you actually know what you're talking about. You're an ex-player, you're a coach. You've been a high school coach, college coach, or you're somebody's cousin, or you're a Visio guy, or you're a computer software guy, and there's a role that you can fill. And what's happened is, like, you think about this from the perspective of the coach and then from this perspective of the player. The ultimate deal for the coach is to make a ton of money, get a head coach, because the job, like, let's be honest, the NFL coaching jobs are hard, right? The hours suck. You're away from your family. There's a lot that they sacrifice. So the payoff is obviously if they value relationships, the relationships. But ultimately, you want to get to that. If most of these guys are trying to make money. Like, you make a ton of money doing this job because it's extremely hard. Not a lot of people want to do it.
Right.
But the problem is, for me, there's a finite amount of time, somewhere between 3 and 10 years, if you're lucky, as an NFL football player.
Yeah.
That's your time to be successful. And we have too many guys that are coming into the league as assistant coaches, guys that are developing our athletes.
Yes.
That are learning on the job. And what is so obvious when you see the Green Bay Packers, when you see 80% of the teams in the National Football League, is you are teaching everything through scheme, teaching everything through what can be learned off of the field, and not focusing on the fundamentals of the sport. Like, you and I watch a football game for the Green Bay Packers. We can tell that they don't prioritize fundamentals. We can tell they don't prioritize technique. We can tell that they don't compete in practice, except for probably like small segments where they call each other out, or all those things. But the competition level in practice, we can tell it's not as high as it used to be, because that's the way they perform. And there's only the reason for that is most of these guys aren't old school. Like, this is how we learn. This is how we get better. This is how we improve resiliency. This is how we develop mental toughness. This is how we improve our technique. Walking through stuff doesn't do the job, right?
No. And like I mentioned, and all that sounds like to me is basically, my mom and dad, my brothers, showing me the way through traditional sports, through school, through discipline. And that's why I added that element when we first started talking about this, is that it's a player thing that they got to look, question themselves, but then the coaches got to like reinforce it. If they don't have a personal conversation with that player, what most individual coaches should do, your online coach, I know, Larry Bechtel, he's an acquired taste to have a personal conversation, try to talk with him straight. But most coaches usually get that connection to where they could talk you face to face. Like, if they got a hard question to ask you and break it down, like, why are you here to play? Why are you here to get better? Or you want to keep making them, you want to make the same mistakes, or you want to get better? I've been asked that as a player, and it's like, no, I want to get better. Yeah, I want to know what I need to do in every situation, from an audible, what happens when the audible's called, what I got to adjust to, and vice versa. And so that starts, like I said, with the player. When that player gets up every morning, they understand what they got to do when it's football season time, when it's in the season, when it's training camp, what they're preparing their body for. It starts now for some of the guys that don't have playoffs. They go into off-season development, off-season training, what they do on their own, what the game plan is, where they know where they're going. They know right away, okay, I'm going back so-and-so.
You're talking about routines.
Yeah,
right? They don't routinize their lives like they should.
No. And they're not, and then they're understanding, okay, I'm doing this for for next season or what have you, and you get to that season, and now you're paying the rewards of what you planted and worked hard in the off season. So it takes, it's the old adage, it takes a community, it takes a village, and it takes that, and sometimes and the players and the coaches, like the development of like you said, not having that on-field experience, coaches basically learning from other coaches or learning from a textbook, which is not a bad thing, but it's not everything. It's not everything you will know in any experience to develop players into Hall of Fame level players. If a player is a first-round draft pick, that percentage is high for that player to become a Hall of Famer at the end of their career. If you have the coaching along with it, that's on a Hall of Fame level. But if that player is a first-round draft pick, he's going to, flounder around a little bit. He might get it where he knocks it out the park because he's on a good team. He got a good situation, like for the Cowboys in the 90s or 49ers back then. But if he's in a place where coaching is not up to par, that talent is going to only go so far. And it's going to eventually probably teeter out and fail. For the hopeful, you teeter out, but then you realize, okay, I got to figure this thing out and get better at what I'm doing. The coaches are not helping me because they don't know what they're talking about. That's a real thing.
That's the problem, right? Yeah. That's so when you say it's the players, I'm agreeing with you. Ultimately, it's like, ultimate ownership, right? Extreme ownership. Jocko Willink. The buck stops with you. But the other side of that is most of these guys, a lot of these players, and let's just take the top 1%, the Patrick Mahomes, the Aaron Rodgers, like those guys are going to figure it out. There's a handful of guys, whether it's genetic, whether they're nature, nurture, they're going to figure it out. Not everybody's like that.
Correct.
And so for the majority of the players, it's the place you end up. It's the coach you have in your room. It's the system you're in, right? At least in the beginning, so you can get your feet wet. It's like we always talk about with Quay Walker's a great example of like the more you send him on missions and stop having him read, the more confidence he's going to build as he's playing live action in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have a coach, if you don't have a culture that is fundamental first, like Bill Belichick. If you are not fundamental first, if your guys aren't gaining confidence because every day they're preparing at being the best at the basics of their positional requirements for their sport, and your coach, and you're not doing it because listen, I know this sounds absurd to everybody out there, but a lot of coaches just don't know how to teach it.
No,
they know how to teach scheme. They can teach scheme all day, but they can't teach footwork. They can't teach body angles. They don't understand how to transfer things from the weight room to the playing field. 100%. I mean, this is a real issue. This is why so many high level players go and find their own guys, right?
Yeah.
For this reason.
Places in Florida, places in Cali, places in Texas,
now,
Louisiana, wherever.
Now, why do you think this team, we're talking all about this because this does affect the Green Bay Packers. This is something that we notice.
Right.
This team is bad at fundamentals. This team doesn't have the attention to detail with a lot of this stuff. It's not that the players aren't good. It's just they could be better, and they know they could be better. But if they don't know how to be, this is the thing that is hard for you. Got to remember, these kids are 21 years old, 25 years old.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know, if you've been told all your life you're the best, hey, you're a great player, you went to a big college, you got talent, you're athletic, and now all of a sudden you're swimming in this huge tank, man, and there's a bunch of sharks, and all those dudes know how to bite, all those dudes know how to swim fast, and you don't know how to do those things as well as everybody else, and you really don't know how to teach yourself. Well, now you got a problem. Now you have a real problem. And if you don't have somebody there holding you, not only teaching you, but holding you accountable, it's not that they don't want to do it. It's that the easier thing to do is to act like it's not happening. And so that's
the worst thing to do too.
But you're absolutely. So AG, this is to me a culture issue. How do you change the culture right now with everything else that goes on in a place like Green Bay?
Oh man. I mean, the people who are running the ship right now, that's where you start. You start with the coaches. All the coaches in that building have to question themselves, their philosophy, how they got there. I met Matt LaFleur at Houston when I walked in the building there. He was I think he was a graduate assistant from one of the Michigan, I think it was Western Michigan, played quarterback. He played a little bit of arena ball before he got to Houston. And then after, I left, I kind of for a pup, like 2009, 2010, I kind of lost where he went. But then I picked him up with Kyle Shanahan, I think in Atlanta. And then he kind of bounced wherever Kyle went, Atlanta. And then I think he went to Tennessee in terms of LaFleur, and he went back to Atlanta and then out to San Francisco, and then boom, 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 and then boom to Green Bay. And so during those stops and during those plays, I know Kyle Shanahan. He has the pedigree from his dad, understanding, philosophy, understanding coaching, how you coach players. And I think he's done a real good job watching him in 49ers, watching him in Atlanta to get the passion, that passion we're talking about, the accountability word. It's not passion. I say more accountability that he gets to pull out of the players. Discipline. And you see discipline. And then players play hard. You see the offensive side of the ball for 49ers playing great and hard. You see the defensive side playing hard, hitting hard, everything. Discipline is there. And so I think Matt somewhere quite missed that part of it. He has to learn. He has to develop it as a coach. Coaches, even though you're coaching, you could be the best coach in the NFL. As we know, you still can learn something. And so that is something you could evaluate yourself on. You know what? We didn't, because you look at the traffic, all the stuff that was going on at the start, all the storm that started the season, Devontae, Christian and Romeo, all questions about them, all that big storm. You see how that's, and how the coaches weathered that storm. They didn't do a really good job with it. It was all, media maybe affected them, but all that storm was going on, and that's when they started losing. They had they were 2-1, and then a 5-game losing streak. So that's where you evaluate yourself. You look at yourself and look at that schedule. I would sit and I will put the schedule on the wall, the 2022 season, and just look at it and just think about everything I did and what I could have done better to help my players get better on the football field, off the field, whatever it was, because there were distractions going on, and they didn't handle those very well as a team.
And AG, that's such an excellent point, man. And one of the things that we know happens in the National Football League now in organizations, I think it happens in college as well, is that the size of the organism is constantly growing. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is frivolous or gratuitous, meaning that instead of focusing, like we always talk about, we take the perspective of players. We are like, if you put me in a building, the only thing I care about is if the guys I'm working with are playing better. I don't care anything else about the game, right? I don't care what colored jersey I got on. I don't care what kind of slacks you gave me. I don't care. I just want the guy to be better. So now these guys have to worry about every day there's somebody coming in saying, hey man, I got a new measurement system that's going to help your defensive ends measure how effective they are. Hey, we're going color rush this week. We got to pick out what kind of food we want on the air, on the airline. We got this person over here says they've got a nose device that's going to help every player sleep 15 minutes more a night. And they all and what happens is, like, you start hearing this stuff. It's like, you get in these meetings that everyone's excited. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, hire this guy, grab that company. And all of a sudden you've gotten so far away from what matters. Mm-hmm. The only thing that matters is, for the player, here's an easy guy, fans out there. You want to know what a player cares about? He cares about one thing. Are you going to help me win my 1v1 matchup?
Yeah.
That's it. Are you going to help me win it? Are you going to put me in a position to be successful? And are you going to give me the tools to find success? That's it. If you do that, I will literally do anything for you. I'll jump in front of a car. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll do whatever you want. If you don't do that for me, all this other stuff, the jerseys, the nice locker rooms, the GPS measuring doesn't matter, man. And the stats all the stuff's has a value, but directly improving on-field success is what I personally think a lot of coaching staffs get away from. And it's easy for the players to get away from it, right? It's easy. Yeah.
Because they're young, most of them are young, and
they don't know to begin with. They never been taught.
Exactly. It was for my journey. I had coaches in Seattle that actually pulled me aside. The wide receiver coach pulled me aside one offseason, my first and only offseason there, going into the 99 year, and he's like, "Come on, I've been watching you catch the ball, so I want you to do this because you're great. You could bring it in." He said, but sometimes you just kind of lose focus. He said, I just want you to start focusing on so he taught me a drill that he didn't have to teach me. But he saw this is off season. This is like the second week of off season conditioning, and I'm the only running back in town. So he's like, okay, you're only running back here, and then you're working hard. So that tells him, okay, he wants to learn something. So let me give me this drill. He's not my wide receiver, but he's one of my players. I am a coach for him. So he gave me that, and I used that drill every day. Even when I got to Green Bay, I taught Tony, I taught Najee the same drill, because it was like, okay, now not only I'm a pretty good running back, now I could catch the ball. I'm a little bit better at that now. So no matter which angle I'm coming out the backfield, I could focus looking in, flip my thumbs up or flip them down, whatever, to do, and that was because he knew he could sense I wanted to get better, and I was tuned in listening to what he said to make sure I knew what I was doing when I got back out there, regardless if it was game plan or game field or on the practice field.
A lot of guys will say that some of these guys don't want to learn, some of these guys don't want to be great, and the truth is, like, all those guys just don't know most of the guys that you're talking about just really don't know their limits, and most of the guys that you're talking about in any level, in any profession, any given thing, they're just afraid, and they're afraid of failure, and they're afraid if they put themselves out there and they fail. You have to help. Like, the biggest part of coaching is helping a player develop confidence. That's the only thing that matters.
Yep, you
right?
Sure do.
Helping players develop confidence so they can play with confidence on Sunday is the only thing that matters. And however you there's different ways to do that, but once you kind of acknowledge that's more important than what kind of car you drive, what kind of haircut you have, how you look on the sideline, like all this other BS, man. Like, what kind of commercials are you getting, a soup commercial, whatever it is. Like, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is, hey, are my guys playing better because of me or worse? That's it.
Yes.
You figure that out.
That's a coach asking the question to himself. Yes, indeed.
We got some listener questions, man. You want to hit these before we do the NFC preview?
Oh, yes, for sure. Let's hit it.
Question 1, AG. We hear this one all the time, so we don't have to go into great detail. But okay. A question is, why are we 13 yards deep on 3rd and 8? Is that a scheme problem? Is that a player problem? What is your take on that?
As we talked about, it's a scheme problem because the players obviously are going by what the coaches are telling them. Mm-hmm. And so the call goes in, it's that situation pop up, and we saw it in last week's game, and it doesn't, for them, it's like, okay, I'm doing my job. I'm not going to question that. They know what they're talking about. But if you're experienced, you understand the situation. It's like, look, I don't want to give him an easy opportunity to catch the ball. Giving him a cushion, 8-yard cushion when it's 4th and, what was it, 4th and 2?
4th and 1, 4th and 2. Oh,
yeah,
both of them, yeah.
It's 4th and 2, so that means I'm in your grill. I'd rather get a pass interference call and you not catch the ball and then me giving you 8-yard cushion. I'll be sleeping. I'll sleep. I wouldn't be able to sleep for the whole offseason if I'm a DB for that situation. Knowing, even though it's the call, then I'll be like, all right, hold up. I need to. This is different. This is situational football.
That's ownership, though, right? So that's player ownership. So that's something that comes with confidence. That's something that comes with enough reps to understand. Like, I know I'm understanding the situation, because what happens with, like, a coach will call in a defense, and like they might forget, even though it's 4th and 1. Hey, dude, tell Jair to press up. Like, we can't be 8 yards off the ball. They're just calling the defense that they call in this situation. The guys backed up where they think they're supposed to be backed up. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden they complete the pass, and you're going like, oh yeah, should have done it different. Yeah. So that's where it comes in. Like, players still have to own what they're doing, even if the coach makes that call. I'm not saying doing something different, but understanding the context by which the situation you're playing in.
Right, and the coach that makes that call, you do what you make that play, then you come to the sideline, hey coach, I just made an adjustment because it was 4th and short. I'm beating him up. I'd rather, and the coach would be like, a good coach would be like, yeah, you're right. Sure. I wasn't on that field at that time.
Okay, so here's one there's what percentage of players being called at the line of scrimmage by Aaron? And listen, we'll just say we don't know, but we do know that. You could probably, if you went through every game and you started looking at anytime he makes a check, or you started looking at any time that the offensive line is going one direction and he throws like that, a smoke route or something like that to the other side. That's not necessarily changing the play, but that's certainly, that's something that's probably built into the offense. And so then you have to figure out from there, like, anytime he throws a go route, maybe that is the signifier. So I have no idea.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough. You see that he does the hard count too. He's reading the defense. He's trying to find out where they're blitzing from, stuff like that.
So I'm going to broaden this question. The question is, how can we maximize our offensive line talent? Let's just broaden that. AG, if there's one thing, I think we talked about all of it, but if there's one thing that you just say, hey, right now, I'm going to walk in, I'm a consultant for the Green Bay Packers. Mm-hmm. What's the one thing that you would tell Matt LaFleur, and they have to do what you ask? What is the one thing that you would do to improve maximize the talent on the entire team?
On the entire team, maximize. Wow. Oh man. I would, let me see. Just thinking about it on the here right now. Man. On the fly. I would just say, I would ask him, why are you here? Mm-hmm. Simple question. Why are you here? Because the answer should be
relationship.
You should be here to win. And so to be here to win, that means you're doing everything in line to that. Mm-hmm. That means starting at the minuscule little thing, waking up in the morning, getting hours of sleep, making sure your home life is situated the way you can function normal when you get to the stadium. And then you get to the stadium, your playbook, your discipline, your techniques, everything you need to do, running back, linebacker, offensive tackle, guard, whatever position you are, it to the detail. And to where even you then collaborate with if you're lineman, you collaborate with your guard, your tackle, your center, your tight end, your running backs. You understand what they know in terms of what you need to do on your run blocking plays and vice versa. And all the positions are having that constant communication all around. So real simple question. Why are you here? That's
I like it. I like it. I would very simply, I would institute that every coach is responsible for giving a player an individual development plan after every game, which just very simply means we're going to look at we're going to look at your plays. We're going to be a little bit more detailed than we are in how we go about grading your plays. It's not going to be like a plus minus. It's going to be, we're going to figure out what you did wrong. It's going to take more time, but it's worthwhile because you're trying to improve the development of your players. And after every one of those situations, you're going to go put in an individual development plan, and we're going to show them the times during the day that we have carved out in our schedule: practice, post-practice, weight room, training room, all these different places, film study, before or after trainings, when you can carve out this time to improve what you need to improve on. Be very specific. You don't overload them one or two things, and we're going to work on it every week until you get it right.
Small. You got off season is long. You got a lot of stuff you can work on, right now.
This one, we'll hit this one in the film. What are the differences between Green Bay and Niners in the run game? I'll answer this one real quick. It really comes down to they put their guys in position to be successful more often than not, but really it's because they have George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk, and we don't. I mean, I'll show you on tape. It's glaring.
Yes, it is.
Let's hit some of this wild card preview stuff. So obviously, because the Green Bay Packers didn't quite make the cut, we're going to look at all the teams they could have played in the NFC. So the first game is San Fran -10 versus the Seahawks. And I'll be honest with you, AG, I'm a Seahawk guy. I'm a Seahawk fan. I'm an ex-player. So are you.
Yeah.
But I didn't even put them on here because this is really about I think, for me, what Seattle brings to the table on both sides of the football, dominating the trenches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's check this out. First and foremost, you got this dude. He doesn't even make a sack on this play, but Bosa, you just watch, look at this speed. Bop, bop, and just takes that inside. Now, most guys right now, most teams are going to chip you at the line of scrimmage or hipped off instead of coming from the back like we used to, because a lot of guys are figuring out, I'll just ricochet, go inside, and they're getting a ton of quarterback hits and sacks. So they're doing this on the line of scrimmage. Even with that, it's like he almost doesn't even break stride here when he gets hit. It's like, okay, I'll just go inside, dive, and make the play.
Quarterback, he got killed.
These guys, led by D'Amico Ryans, the great football player, but now defensive coordinator for the Niners, man, they are playing with their hair on fire right now. And every one of these guys, safety down, are unbelievable. So they move him inside. They take Eric Armstead 91 outside, and they're going to run a three-man game here. We're going to go tackle down. Stand-up linebacker is going to cross the center's face to the left guard, and they're going to drag 56 all the way around here. This is like a simple pickup. Usually, this really isn't that hard for an offensive line, but when you're just playing with speed and ferocity, and you see how, Jesus, what's his name? Now I just lost his. Lost my train of thought. But you see how Bosa. You see how Nick Bosa penetrates here. And because his penetration gets offline with the center, they can't bounce back. And I mean, this quarterback just has no chance. You just see they're having a damn picnic.
Yeah, in the quarterback.
It's not just one guy's getting there, and it pops off the screen when you watch their tape, man. It's insane. Now, I showed this. This is a speed to power play. And a lot of guys wonder, so you see Bosa's got his outside hand down versus the inside hand down, okay? It's something that's interesting. It's well, why do teams do that? Well, in this case, if you have your outside hand down, that means you're going to, right now, with his right hand's down, his right foot's back, he's going to go step, and then right foot, left foot, down. And then on that second right foot, so your third step, that's when you're gonna attack. Now you do the opposite when you have your left hand down, so it changes the timing. What's unique about this guy, he's so good with his inside hand and so good with leverage, has such good bend. You look, he runs right up this line as he makes the play on the left tackle here. 1, 2, 3, and now he comes in, and you see this this lineman's like, man, that was fast. Turns his shoulders, and now he's just catching. You see, Bosa's got his left hand, his inside hand, winning. This offensive
on
lineman
that
is
chest
not punching.
plate.
Yeah, dude, not punching, extending, leaning on the guy, and like right here at this point, I'm just telling you from experience, offensive line wise, if you're in this position, the dude's just trying to run through you, you got real issues because you're not going to separate from him.
No, he
Ends up
has
making
you
the play.
close because he's able to. He's basically pressing you and pressing you with your legs and his legs and his arms into the quarterback.
It's a full body. It's like the hammer jammer machine.
It is.
You know, it's like full extension, triple extension, ankles, knees, and toes, arms out. It's all you can eat.
Yep.
These guys are not just like they got Fred Warner. They got great safeties. They have a Troy Polamalu protege. And
Fatunga, is it Fatunga? How you say his name?
Yeah, man. They are. I'm not even gonna try, but they are so much fun to watch. And
yes,
like
they are.
This guy doesn't even make the play, but he actually makes the play that makes the play. So they're running a wide receiver screen. You see, he braces up. They're supposed to push off this. He braces up and ends up winning outside leverage. The inside receiver can't get out to make the play on 25. Just can't get out here. Too much speed, too much aggression. And then like at the end of this, you see they just start going at it a little bit because that's a tight end. And he's like, dude, you got nothing on me. Like these guys are just ferocious, just absolutely ferocious. And then on the offensive side of the ball, they've got so many weapons. And Brock Purdy's playing really well. He's playing in the context of what Kyle Shanahan wants him to do. He's making great decisions. Sometimes he gets off the spot a little bit, but throws a good ball, super smart. You see they got Juszczyk out here. There's two things going on that are awesome in this, right? So they're going to run one of their many talented running backs or / wide receivers across the ball, right, to move the defense. And then they make this block easier. Juszczyk's being covered by number 21. Now, they want 81 to block the defensive end. That is a really hard ask. Like, we know how difficult it is. Not everybody has Mercedes Lewis, okay? And Mercedes can't always be in the game. So this is a really hard block for 81, but Juszczyk, they do such a good job of, they show like a crack look here, and they're gonna fake crack, widen him. 81's got an easy block. Everybody's just running to the right. We had double team, except for your best player, all-pro Trent Williams, who does a great job of absorbing this backside 3 technique. So let's watch Juszczyk first, number 44. This is just smart football, right? Like all you need to do is touch him. He turned his shoulders. Now it's easy for 81 to block him off the screen. Juszczyk can rise up. Yeah. And then on the backside of this dude, like from a running back perspective, you got double team, and then Trent Williams just absorbs this guy and just creates like a vertical gap.
A vertical lane. That's all you want. That's what you're looking for. Just give me something, a little slice of life to get through, get the ball upfield and make some plays. And that's what happened right there.
So now we talk about Kittle and Juszczyk. These guys, they can do it all, and they block full speed. And because they play so fast, like the pace by which that they go through their motions and everything has an effect on the defense, right? I'm talking about the linebackers getting disoriented, the safeties being disoriented. Maybe the defensive line, depending on what team you're playing, has to shift real fast. But they are just – so Juszczyk goes in motion here. And then they follow through, and they're essentially running power, gap, whatever you want to call it, counter with their tight end and their fullback coming up through. And the only way you can do that, and I mean, from an offensive line perspective, this is literally a free run. Like you never get free runs in football. This is a free run for the offensive line. They're all just going to block to the left. Everyone's just going to block to the left. The right guard's going to rise up to the linebacker, is going to get confused by all the motion. Deebo Samuel's is going to have to come in and block. But because they have Juszczyk at fullback, and he's very comfortable going up and butting up this defensive end right in the face right here, like not a lot of guys are just willing to go hit that guy helmet to helmet anymore, right? They're trying to cut him. They're trying to do all this stuff. McGlinchey, the right tackle, does a good job of collapsing this hole. So actually, Kittle could even cut even quicker, but ends up finding a guy to block number 47. And it's just another 10-yard game, man. This just adds up over the course of every game you watch with these guys.
Yeah, this repetitive bludgeoning with the ball, right up the middle, slow you down, beat you up. And then across what we used to do, all the motioning, that makes another layer of confusion for the defensive backfield, defensive line, linebackers, everybody. And
a lot of teams try to motion, but it doesn't work because they don't have the guys. It's like, you run a slot receiver across the formation. Yeah, you have to make some adjustments, but these guys are always sprinting. One, Two, I think this is Christian McCaffrey. So Christian McCaffrey is now sprinting across.
Yep.
And Kittle's going to find him. So now they're going, oh, all the linebackers are going, oh, hell. Well, that's Christian McCaffrey. Kittle's following him. What are we doing? So this kind of looks like the same play, right?
Yep.
Now they're going out the front side. Why?
Give it to Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah, because look at the linebackers. Like, look how this affects 47 and 56 in the middle. Look what they do. Look where 56 ends up after this play. Look where he is. Dude, you're in Egypt. You know what I mean? And it happens
nowhere.
all the time. This is like when you ask what the Niners are doing that the Packers aren't.
There you go.
Speed, power,
Execution.
aggressiveness. Yeah, the components is your execution is the simple answer, right?
Yep.
Components are speed, power, and execution. Though these guys are physical, they play super fast pre-snap, and they just execute at a high level. They don't make a lot of mistakes. Dude, Juszczyk, you got double hipped off look. I love, dude. This was like watching. This is football porn for me, man. I was watching this yesterday. Like, you got to be kidding. This guy's amazing. So we got double hipped off look, something that we do all the time. We just don't have a fullback, like a real fullback. Juszczyk goes in motion, and now they've got a toss look with Christian McCaffrey. You've got the double team with the left guard in the center, Jake Brendel. You got Juszczyk leaning out, and look, all these linebackers are just taking off, dude. Because when you back in the day, if you were in I formation and you took a pitch, you're taking that thing to the sideline.
Yeah. Yep.
They're not doing that anymore. Now this could be like a 7-hole, a 5-hole play. They're showing the toss motion to get all these guys to run. They're selling Juszczyk to get these guys to run. The blocks on the backside are super easy, great angles for the right guard and the right tackle. And now, like, they secure that double team, make him turn his shoulders, cut off the double team. Another 8 yards. Like, that's easy football, man. And if you look at it, really, your offensive line doesn't have to be very good to do that. You know what I mean? You go back and watch this, and this is the difference to me. Like, they have Trent Williams is all-world, first-ballot Hall of Famer. But he's not really doing anything this play, right? And he doesn't have to. Yeah, you can't get beat inside here if you're Kittle. Yeah, McGlinchey's got to cut off that backside 4-eye, which is not really a tough block for him. But all these guys, like, it doesn't really matter if you block these guys well or not, dude. It's like, can you secure that shade? And then Christian McCaffrey's just going to do his thing.
Yeah, let the running back work. You know, linemen just get in the way and run their feet is the way they put it with that play right there. And it's designed to cut back. It's not even designed to go to the sideline, go to the edge. You could if you want to because you have the speed in the backfield.
With all that said, are you agreed that San Fran's going to walk out of this game?
Oh yeah. It's going to be they're going to beat up somebody and beat up some players.
So the second game of the weekend is Dallas. I'm talking about NFC guys, the Dallas Tampa game, and listen, we can talk about Tampa and Mike Evans and Tom Brady have a relationship again, and they seem to be looking at Villa back healthy, so they're playing well on defense. They're playing better than they did in the beginning of the season. The Dallas Cowboys it's going to be 100% all about the Dallas defense, obviously, but really Dak Prescott, man. I mean, Dak Prescott is just not playing. He's got 15 picks this year, and he missed 5 games. He leads the league in picks, and he's got 5 games, less than everybody else. They score 27.5 points in the league. They're top for number 4. They're well balanced. They run the ball. It's almost 50-50. It's 48-52 run to pass. Good for number 10 in the league. And you see, like, I highlight this play again. I don't always highlight plays that get a ton of yards. I highlight plays that like show you that they're well coached. This is Joe Philbin's. This is Joe Philbin's coaching group. So their center, you see they're going to ace with All-Pro Zach Martin, right guard. He has a little ace block here. Bang! Immediately sees that we're showing a little against the rookie. We got, I think that's Deron Payne, the defensive tackle, is showing a little. So he's going to come over and slam that, and just take that off and let the linebacker make the play 4 or 5 yards deep. Like, that is a little thing that when you start talking about details and you start talking about coaching, you start talking about culture, that is a little thing that we do see from guys like John Runyon Jr., but we're not seeing across the board.
Right. Yeah. Good job.
You watch Dak here, and the throw's open right now. He's gonna run a slant, throws open, but he's just not taking it. And whether he's feeling the rush and this and that, they've got a couple different guys playing offensive line. So now Tyron Smith's back, but he's playing right tackle, so it took him a little while to get used to it.
Yeah, he's on the other side.
Jason Peters is playing left tackle. Jason Peters was one of the baddest dudes I've ever seen play football. Right now, he still looks good, at times, but he is older, and it's easy to beat him inside when you start looking at the talent on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're kind of spaced out. Vita Vea is actually leading them in sacks, which is kind of nuts to think about. But Joe Tryon is a guy, he's a first-round pick last year. I just see him kind of giving Peters a little bit of trouble because he does a great speed to power with an inside bull. And Dak, you just see, he's just kind of seeing the rush a little bit more than you'd expect. Like this kind of look right here. When you've got a stacked defensive back outside on your number one wide receiver on a 3-by-1 look, and then you have him backed up by the corner, well, you've got to probably know that you need to go over to the 3 side, right? Like in other words, they're gonna reroute this guy for sure. And what's interesting about this play is like Dak comes over and is looking. It's like, what are you looking at? And so now you feel like, oh, I got to start scrambling, blah 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 blah. And you give up a sack when I think maybe when he's in a better frame of mind before his injury. I don't know if you see some of these kind of errors, right? Because it's not like this is
1, 2, 3, boom, ball should be.
This isn't a collapsing pocket early, right? Like he's got space.
Yeah, you only got about maybe 3 seconds, if that. So third step, he's on that back foot. The ball should be out.
And even right here, get rid of the ball. Those sacks, those mean something to offensive linemen. Those mean something to the quarterback, the psyche of the team. So
100%.
It's just interesting. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they are actually 8th in the league in sacks. They don't have a guy higher than 6.5 sacks, but they've let's see, 8th in the league at 43 sacks this year, which is nuts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Right. So you look at Jason Peters right here. We're talking about it. You just see this inside bull. And he feels that pressure, got to get rid of the ball again. This, like, you watch the first half of this game really until the 2-minute drive, Dak doesn't look great. You got an open stick right here, doesn't hit it. Now throws the ball away, almost gets it picked off. And like literally very next play, bro.
Yeah, it is. It was the next play.
You got outside leverage here, and you can throw the quick out against outside leverage right here. You could throw it, right? He's there. But you got to throw it in his hands.
Yeah.
There's no room for error here. No room for error. And that's just like, that's elite. When you talk about elite level quarterback play, that's where we're at. So what do? They have to sit down and start running like 5-yard stick routes. And you just see the evolution of their offense from this point on was like, okay, let's just give him just as much as he can eat. And it's not as dynamic. He took a couple shots deep, but they were 50-50 balls. Could have very easily been picked off. See
behind him.
Yeah, just timing's a little bit off. And really for this guy's in his face, you see that rush, you feel the rush. But again, if you're a top 10 quarterback, top 5 quarterback, that's not what you expect.
Yeah. That shouldn't stutter you off your throw right there. Shouldn't stop you off your throw.
I think generally everybody thinks if Dallas can run the football against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they should be able to win, right? Because they take away some of the issues that Dak's having in the passing game. But like this play, 2-minute drive, he put a great drive together. You say they're playing too high, and they're going to trap. They got trips down to the left. Talking about Dallas Cowboys, they're going to go tan and trap the inside receiver with the backside safety. As soon as Dak sees this, right here, he knows that slot has to be open because the play side safety is not going to also trap the second slot.
Yeah.
Makes a great throw in a tight window. And like if he delivers like that, dude, this team could honestly, if he plays like that throw, that one rep, if he plays like that, they can go a great distance. But there's a lot of tape right now that's showing that he's kind of feeling the heat a little bit. I don't think he's seeing ghosts by any means, but he doesn't look like this is confident footwork, right?
Yeah.
Steps into his throw and everything.
Exactly. He's got to be he gets something going on in-house. Hopefully he gets it straightened up before the weekend gets here. So we see the quarterback that we've seen when he's playing at the top level. So
Last one here, man. Now this is our Vikings Giants, and they're hot. The Vikings average 25 points a game.
Yeah.
35% rushing we talked about. So when Kirk Cousins is on, it's great. When he's not, it's not great. Justin Jefferson had 1,800 yards receiving, dude. Like, he's big time. Kirk Cousins was sacked 46 times this year.
No surprise.
46 sacks, man. And we talked about it before the Packers game. Like, he just doesn't see what's about to happen.
He doesn't have that pocket awareness. I mean, once I started really watching him, because I'm like, why are they losing these games? I said, let me pay attention to the backfield. When he's throwing the ball and what happened. And sure enough, we pointed it out last couple of weeks before, 2 weeks ago. It's like, man, he is not looking around. Not that you don't even have to look. You just got to use your peripherals to see who's coming down on you and just step up, step left, step right, or step back and get out of the pocket to give yourself a chance, at least to throw the ball away at worst case scenario.
The biggest question mark, I think, for this team is not really Kirk Cousins right now, though. I think it's the center, the play of the rookie right guard, but the center's on the third string guy. And then the right tackle is going to be a backup.
Yeah.
And you just see here, we talk about Ingram, number 67, and we wanted to pick on him all season as well. But this is against the Chicago Bears, not known for their defensive line, but just manhandles, gets back in the backfield, tackle for loss. This is a recurring theme in this game. We got some slant looks now, so they're going to run the slant. They're going to run 45 down. And this is a communication thing. You have a tight – I mean, this is what we call an external cue. If I'm the right tackle and I see his stance, I see the tightness, I see the way the body position is, I'm making a slip call. Whatever the guard was going to do, we are now going to double team this, so I don't have to come out and I can make this hit. Like, you always have to prioritize inside out. He thinks he sees this safety late and jumps. That's problems, man. The safety's not going to make the play if the running back hits the hole hard and hits the ball tight.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Constant communication.
Technique, we talk about it all the time. You got to step inside. You have poor footwork. You get, like, if I can tie your shoelaces together, it's going to be a bad play, right? That's pretty much the easiest way to look at it, isn't it?
Yep. I like that. Yeah, if the footwork's too close together, not in the right position, can't use your power.
We talked about Kirk and just kind of what happens when situations get a little tight. And, like, he's not really – there's no pressure here. There's no reason he can't throw the ball. But sometimes, you just get locked onto a guy. And one of the things about Kurt is when we talk about hot and cold, he's 29. Sorry about that. He's got 29 touchdowns, but he's got 14 picks.
Sure, yeah.
So as we said, Dak Prescott has 15, tied for the league lead. Well, he's in a very close third place with 14. That's not a great year.
Yeah. Not a good year. So if they're in the right mindset, Kurt and Dak, then it's going to be the game for their team. But if they're not, something rocks them off their mark of being the quarterback they should be come Saturday, come Sunday, then it's going to be a short playoff season for both teams.
I put Wink on there because of Wink Martindale, the defensive coordinator for the Giants, and this dude likes to bring it, man. They're fun to watch. Like, honestly, they're fun to watch. They got a couple of Dexter Lawrence and Williams inside, or arguably the NFC East just has tandems of defensive tackles all over the place. It's nuts. Like the Eagles, the Commanders, these guys. I mean, Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, Pro Bowler this year. I mean, they're playing. I think he just made all pro on the NFLPA team. You see that they're showing 6 and they're going to drop 1, bring 6 on the other side. Oh, here he comes. And this is against the first team offense for the Philadelphia Eagles, man. This isn't like, you're not playing against Sisters of the Poor here, the second string. You know what I mean? These guys they get down the red zone. This is a couple of plays earlier. They got everybody up. They're showing it, and they're going to bring it. Like, hey, we'll bring more. We're comfortable. This is what Wake Martindale does. We're comfortable bringing this.
And you got to do that. You got a potent offense like what Philly has or any team they're going to face in the playoffs. You got to do that. You got to make sure you bring more what they can block.
And we talked about it with the Vikings. It's like if you get – and this is what we did with Justin Jefferson. If you get him off his first look, you might be able to get there. It might be a problem.
Progression read is a bit slow, basically.
This is I put this on here. I didn't realize this is the hit that Kayvon Thibodeau started doing the Snow Angels looking like an asshole. By the way, did you see his response to that? He was like, he acted like he didn't know who Jeff Saturday was.
I saw.
Bro, everything that I thought about you before the draft with the way you were talking about you're going to build your brand in New York and all this, like, you're not really worried about football stuff. Like, thank you for making me like not. I felt judgmental for a minute, and then I heard you talk again. I was like, oh yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Thank you. Thank you for the reminder.
But the Colts do a good job here of offensive line wise. You got to take most dangerous, the running back. Listen, Nick Foles is, I think, the third string quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. So he has to know the running back's not going to block him, or the running back's got to block him one way or
One
the
of the
other.
two, right?
Yeah, but they get home. They saw they had two guys free there. And then you look at Dexter Lawrence, man. This is going up against Quentin Nelson, who is no joke. He's had a down year, but dude, this guy's legit. He's probably the best, most powerful physical specimen guard in the league, and he just gets absolutely walked. I mean, you just don't see that very often, man.
Interesting. To see that. He kind of peeked behind him too, like he was wondering if he was going to hit somebody or something.
Yeah. Whitney needs to want to make sure fat guys don't like to fall down. I know that from experience. You see Thibodeau here; they're going to bring 4 off the edge. And listen, one thing you can do, the Niners, Hawkinson's a great player. He's not a great receiver. You can attack their tight ends, and why more teams don't just attack tight ends. I don't really understand, but just the concept here. If I'm going to drive block this tight end into the backfield and just make plays like this, I mean, when you're Wink Martindale and you're moving your guys around a ton, this is just the opportunities that you have, right? So,
so real quick, I got to jump.
Okay.
Get to my other podcast. So, Mike, great job today as usual, doing your thing and doing our thing. And so, I'm gonna watch some playoff games this weekend. See what happens up. See what ends up. So, and you can find me on Instagram and not Twitter anymore. I got hacked. I got hacked on Twitter, so only on Instagram or MindGreen30. Hopefully soon I may be able to get my account back. We'll find out. But yeah, Instagram or MindGreen30, and then Gamers Lounge, which I'm about to hit right now on YouTube Live. You could catch me on that right now. Excuse me, MindGreen's Gamers Lounge there as well. So Mike, man, be well. I got everything switched over. Talk to Gus. So if you didn't get no message, or he said he resent.
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, so we got that going. All right, so have a great weekend, man. And in a couple weeks, I'll see you. Because next week, I'm out there in Nebraska doing all the onboarding and all that fun stuff. So,
all right,
acclimated. See you, bud. All right, see you.
All right, so finishing up. Listen, some of the things I didn't cover, I probably should have. The San Francisco 49ers are number 1 on defense and everything. They're number 1 in points. Number 1 in run. Let's see. The Niners number 1 in turnover margin. Number 1 in defense in the NFL at 16 points per game. Number 6 in offense. Defensively, they're number 1 in yards per game at 300. Number 2 at yards per carry for rushing. 77 yards total, which is nuts. Like 77 yards allowed in the ground is ridiculous. The average in the league is like 120, 130. So think about how good that is. They run the ball 48% of the time. That's just a really fun team to watch. That's actually my pick right now. The Philadelphia Eagles depends on Jalen Hurts shows up. As he was a little bit rusty. Obviously, we saw some of that Giants game. If he comes back, the Eagles they have to be the favorites because of Brock Purdy really at the quarterback position is going to be the differentiator there. But man, oh man, you cannot watch the San Francisco 49ers and not be a fan of Kyle Shanahan, not be a fan of George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, all Debo Samuel, all those guys, man. They can ball. They all play extremely hard. They just have the right attitude about them. We talk about it right now with the Packers side. Like, what's the difference? The difference is in the details. The details allow you to play with aggression, allow you to play with confidence. And those guys are just all over the field going for it. Very, very fun team to watch. They might be my pick for the NFC right now. I just think they're really good. That defense is no joke. That last game we talked about, Dallas, the Vikings are favored by 3 against the Giants. I think the Vikings will probably pull that game off at home. The Giants defense I really like. That offensive line for the Vikings is going to be a real problem because they have so many injuries. Playing that third string center, man, it's just you're getting down to a point where that's a development guy and you're playing him in a big game in the playoffs. It's going to be really difficult. But I still have the Vikings. Dallas is 2.5 at the Bucks. That's a Dak game. It really is a Dak game. If they run the ball, they'll win. I think what you're finding is, and we talked about this last week, I think, Cooper Rush had a lot of success when he came in and played for Dallas. And what happens when your first team guy gets back, your star, your $150 million quarterback gets back, is like you change the offense. They're throwing the ball 30 times a game. Every time he throws the ball 30 times a game, he turns the ball over. When you do that, it's a big issue. Yeah, Eagles defense. Somebody bring the heat asked about Eagles defense. Eagles defense is legit, right? Eagles defense, but they're not the San Francisco 49ers defense. Just watch the tape, man. They are really, really Good. Dallas has McCarthy too. Yeah. Well, listen, Mike McCarthy. Leadership gets stale. No, Bill Belichick is an anomaly. Leadership gets stale, and leadership gets stale, especially when you have a quarterback that's an all-world quarterback. And you saw that with Tom Brady and Belichick, right? Like I don't know if they had a falling out, but it was time to move on. And Belichick wins the Patriots time to move on. Well, Rodgers kind of won the McCarthy time to move. They had their time together, and we could talk about, yeah, they should have won more, this and that, but like that's not just the head coach. And we saw a couple of things, I think, down in Dallas with the clock management and questions. Like, man, the guy's a good coach. He's a good coach. He coaches his guys hard. Dan Quinn's a great defensive coordinator. I think bringing him in was a godsend for Mike. You're dealing with a quarterback who's going through some stuff right now, injury-wise, mental space-wise. They have a great team. They've drafted well. Like if Dak plays well, they could go really far in the playoffs. You know, and Mike McCarthy he's a good coach who has a good staff. Sometimes I think he's unfairly judged in Green Bay just because leadership gets stale. Like 6-7 years after that, it's tough to have your message go across. All right, guys. The last thing I want to say is the NFLPA came out with an all-pro team. So go check it out. Like I wish they would have done this years ago. I don't know if they're going to have a second team. They just have first team out right now. It's such a great thing. It's kind of like the NFL 100, right? And listen, players aren't perfect because a lot of those guys who don't know what they're looking at kind of look at the stat sheet. You saw that Cordell, and the reason I'm bringing that up is Cordell Patterson got all-pro kick returner for the Falcons. He has like 330 yards return. He returned like 8 or 9 kickoffs. Keyshawn Nixon is the most obvious all-pro candidate for the return game. He has over 1,000 yards. He just was amazing. He was a godsend this year for the Green Bay Packers. Like really changed their whole dynamic of their team. But because he started probably halfway through the season, he's not getting the credit he deserves. Maybe guys still don't know who he is. But that list, like it's hard to argue with that list. I love the fact that the players got to look at it. It's like not the media, not all the narratives. They're not trying to create a story so they can talk about it on Fox or whatever it is. Like real guys who play every single day against these players, hard-nosed guys, professionals are making that list. So go appreciate them for that. I don't know if they're going to be able to get money off that as far as like you get money in your contracts for being all-pro, being Pro Bowl. I hope they can get it off being the NFLPA all-pro because that to me would mean more than anything. But we'll see what happens this weekend. This is a fun one. Hope everybody enjoyed. Hit me up, MikeWall68 on Twitter and TikTok. Hit me up, Process to Perform on Instagram. Check this out, the Process to Perform channel on YouTube. And have a great weekend, everyone. We'll get back to you on Monday.